amongst the people, you work amongst the people, or eat amongst the people, should we say, because you might work online, for example. So, you know, what we're looking at is really, how can you leverage what they call cultural assets through cultural tourism?
Did you say cultural assets?
Cultural assets, sorry. And how can the Caribbean benefit by attracting visitors who are seeking to do this? So one of us might decide, you know, we have the opportunity to work online, but rather than staying in London or in Manchester or Birmingham or wherever, we actually decide we're going to go and stay in St. Lucia, St. Kitts. I mean, last week we had the wonderful presentation by the sister from St. Vincent. 32 beautiful islands. Some of them are populated. Some of them are literally reserves to protect the wildlife. I mean, absolutely spectacular. Before that, we had the beautiful sister from Montserrat. So, you know, there's so many opportunities for us across the Caribbean. How can we, as African Caribbean people of the Caribbean, really harness the benefits of these assets? So yeah, that's what we're talking about this evening. And we're looking at how can we invest maybe in local businesses, for example, or can we set up a local business? Can we trade with someone back home to provide some resource over here? I mean, there are lots of opportunities. I don't know what you're thinking, my brother, Atiba. Greetings, Harmony, about what I've been saying, if any of that resonates with you.
No, of course. Like we spoke on earlier, it's about creating those financial opportunities going into we're already in the 21st century, but moving into the 31st century. That's like where we can obviously have create opportunities to live back in the Caribbean, as opposed to just traveling or just visiting the Caribbean.
Yeah. And I mean, I think we can also, tourism can be exactly that. It can be a way for us to decide how we can repatriate or rematriate, as a sister of mine says, rematriate back home to the Caribbean. Many people, I mean, you know, not even people who are elders, but, you know, many people just decide that, you know, the cost of living is lower in many places. It's not always the case, but in many places, and that obviously the weather, the food, just the, you know, being around the people that you see when you wake up in the morning, when you go to bed at night, you know, all of that makes it a very desirable location. And I say it, I mean any island really in the Caribbean, unless there's some kind of ecological threat or something, really, you know, you can't go wrong. So yeah, what we're looking at is, you know, how can you sort of think about promoting local businesses in the Caribbean? How can we market what we have to offer in the Caribbean? What is there for us as diasporans of the Caribbean? What is there over here that we can use to support over there, and vice versa? So yeah, I'm hoping that I can get some feedback. So we've got Bianca and San Hackney. I'm wondering if you have anything you'd like to share about what we've been discussing. You know, how can we create financial opportunities through cultural tourism? You know, what can we do to empower ourselves financially? Either of you want to contribute? Because otherwise it'll be me talking and it'll be a lecture.
Well, I know Senna, when he came on before, at one point he was driving, but I'm sure he's probably pulled over by now. But Bianca, anything that you've got there?
We love to hear from the people on the Zooms, because what we're trying to do is build what would we say, a movement, really, almost, you know, a cultural tourism movement. We know it's there. People are doing it, and we recognize the value of it and the importance to our community. And it's all about empowering our community, creating wealth, Wealthy Wednesdays, creating opportunities, and and seeing ourselves, we are the diamonds, you remember coal creates diamonds, coal is black, it's powerful. And that's who we are as African heritage people. So we must embrace that and celebrate that. So yes, Sister Bianca, did you want to say anything? Am I putting you on the spot if I mention your name? It's just I feel on the spot now because I'm having to speak all the time. No? Okay, so maybe I should throw out some things and see what people think. So some of the things that have come up before in the previous shows, because as I said, this is the 14th in the series, are things like festivals and events. That's come up a lot. How can people use festival and events? And of course, both the presentations that we had, or the 3 presentations that we had, because we also had St. Lucia, and we also had, what was the last one, my brother? Atiba, we had St. Lucia, Montserrat.
And St. Vincent.
Greetings, Sister Bianca.
Hi, sorry. I've just gone into a different room because it's loud. My son's on the game. Hi, greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
I really am trying to look into how I would survive in the Caribbean, not just now, but even in like latter years, because we're seeing more and more elderly in the Caribbean kind of struggling to pay for like healthcare, and then they come back to the UK, which doesn't even help, because when you're back in the UK with the conditions that we're living in and the stress alone, just even limits the quality of life. And I'm just trying to work out, like, for every elderly person that comes back to the UK for the NHS, how could it have been prevented? Like, what, I'm just trying to think. When they were in the Caribbean, was there any way around this? And it goes back to finance again.
Mm-hmm.
Is it because, I don't know, I can't even get my head around it, but I'm just thinking, is it because, so imagine you've got a bought house, so your house is built, so you don't have to worry about that.
Mm-hmm.
I know that if you're out of the country for more than 6 months, I'm sure I think you can't claim on your pension or something like that. I'm not sure, but I know there's a time frame where the UK say you just can't access it. So I'm just trying to wonder how the elderly are kind of forced to get on that plane and come back to the UK because they just can't survive.
Yes, that is a really good point, and it does come up a lot. So it's an excellent point that you've raised. I'm not sure on the pension point. I think I might be incorrect. I'm not an expert in any way, and I don't claim to be one. I do think that there are circumstances in which you can take your pension to the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So
that'll be good.
I think it's roughly about, your state pension is roughly about £700 a month, which is obviously not very viable in the current cash living crisis in the UK. The £700 a month doesn't go very far, and if you don't have a private pension from work or whatever else, or some sort of statutory sector thing, then you're sort of a bit stuck with £700. But I don't know. You see, I can only speak for Trinidad, and I know things are quite expensive back home there. But I don't know, the Eastern Caribbean dollars 4-1, so I don't know if it's viable to live on 2,800 EC per month in most of the Caribbean. I really don't know. As for generally just healthcare and how you'd manage it, there are private healthcare providers across the Caribbean, and I suppose what might be worth doing is doing some research on the cost, because I know, for example, in the Gambia, some of the healthcare providers, you pay for private healthcare, and it's really, some of it's really good. You have to obviously be discerning, and it's actually really cheap compared to what you'd have to pay in England. And we have to remember that, yes, it is true, we do have the NHS, but the reality is for how much longer? You know, we have to face facts. When I arrived in this country in 1977, the NHS, and I'm from Trinidad, the NHS was not what it is today. You know, the services that you received, everything was free at the point of need, which was the principle upon which it was founded in 1948. But it's not the case anymore. There are all sorts of things. You have to pay for podiatrists, you have to pay for a dentist, you have to pay. So much of the NHS is being privatized. So we hang on to this idea that, you know, we've got this wonderful NHS and we get ill, we come back to England. But the reality is, my sister, we might actually find in the next 5 to 10 years, and I don't know your age, but I'm assuming you're a youngish person, you're not like over 60. So in the next 5 to 10 years, you might find there really isn't much left of the NHS. So that might be, but you might really be, we're in the same position here. We might be having to pay for so many things. And actually, it's worth checking. Is it cheaper to pay to get your healthcare back home in the Caribbean? I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know what people think.
Yeah, because I want to, you know, everything that you said, I want to go to the Caribbean and just settle there. I have no intentions of coming back, but because I've seen so many elderly come back, it's just, I don't ever want to be in that position. Once I'm gone, I'm gone. I really don't want to be coming back, not for healthcare reasons. Absolutely. If anything, we're going to the Caribbean because of healthcare reasons, because we want to prolong our life. Being in, you know, in the Caribbean, you know, people are living past 100. You know, most people at 40 are not living here. I've just turned 33, and there's so many people around me dying because of the food and whatever here. So I do hope to see 35, if anything. So yeah, I think. Sorry, my sons.
We'll just wait for a minute and let Bianca deal with her child. Unless, San, you wanted to add anything whilst she's doing that? Or Tiba?
Then, San, are you there? San. Yeah, I'm just excited, man. This is beautiful. Us coming together every Wednesday, and speaking on these topics and moving forward with elevated mindsets to really to get something bigger than what we're dealing with now. So I'm just glad that we're sort of able to keep this energy going and flowing. In terms of what's it called, financial opportunities, again, obviously we're coming from the point of view of how can we basically build infrastructure? How can we deal with sort of my type of thinking? Because even some people, when you go to actually the Caribbean, some people have got the mindset that they want to come to the UK, or the UK is where the pot of gold is. So at the end of the day, it's about how can we provide services or servicing to individuals in the Caribbean to where they view the Caribbean as being that pot of gold, basically, as opposed to just as opposed to somewhere they're just living. It's with all of
tourism,
us.
So what you're saying essentially, my brother, is that tourism is much deeper than tourism. You know, the as we see it, it's much deeper than people just moving from one place to another and spending time. It's actually about thinking about the mindset. It's thinking
it's always the mindset, because how did we get here in the first place? How could, my parents were on a beautiful island called Trinidad and Tobago, and in somewhere inside of their mindset or whatever they was told, they've decided to move over to the UK.
But then I suppose it comes back to why we're talking about financial financial viability, financial empowerment, because I'm pretty certain that your parents, like many others, were probably motivated to come to the UK in the belief that they would have greater financial success.
Prosperity, yeah.
Yeah, prosperity, exactly, because
Ah,
that's what people
100
were led to believe. It wasn't true, but it was what they were led to believe.
And because even when I've gone back to parts of Trinidad where I would have been about or been around, I realized, wow, this is like the ghetto. So, so it's one of them ones. At the same time, it's like, yo, how can? Yeah, it's just about elevating a lot of mindsets, man. But it's about how can.
And also changing. I mean, I think reality is about transformation. If we want to transform the tourism industry into something that benefits our people, as opposed to something that continues colonialism, that has all the negative trappings of colonialism, because we must remember there's an aspect of the tourist industry that looks very, very colonialist, whereby we have lots of white people, rich white people arriving on an island, be it Barbados, Jamaica, St. Lucia, St. Kitts, St. Vincent, Trinidad and Tobago, wherever it might be, arriving there and being treated like they're almost gods. You know, they're sitting there, they have the money to pay for the most expensive hotels. They pay for a driver. One of our people is like, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir. They drive them around. They speak to, they can be, you know, rude or obnoxious to our people. They feel they're entitled. You know, so there's an aspect of tourism which is not very positive, but there's an aspect of tourism which could be fantastic, which could be so empowering, because actually the reality is the Caribbean is a very, very beautiful place. It is one of the most beautiful places. It is literally paradise. And so, yeah, we really need to think about how we can look at tourism as a force for good and a force for change, to really put control in the hands of our people in terms of financial control. So yeah, that's what we're trying to build.
I would even go one step more than that and say wealth control, man. Like, because even financial control is like still, or it depends on what angle we're talking about finances from. Because if we're talking about it from agriculture and control of like resources, then that's definitely the financial control that I'm talking about. But obviously the financial world, even though we put that as a topic, it resonates a lot with the nature of money, paper, and things of that nature. And what's it called? And that still keeps us entrapped anyway. So more time we got to look at things from a sort of wealth, prosperity sort of basis. And even now, when I'm even thinking about it, because even I'm like, right, hold on a minute. I've got several networks. One network with, say, people from the Trinidad and Tobago community, like predominantly. And like over the course of this sort of time period that we've been doing this or running these programs, some have tuned in, of course, but many have not, where there should have been a lot more on these type of programs to obviously offer more insight and stuff of that nature, which is where we probably are sort of lacking in that sort of. So it's about getting that information out as well, basically.
Yes. And again, I suppose that's one of the things. It's interesting because people often talk about the inability to use communication systems that we know in the West across places of what we would call the global South, Caribbean, Africa, etc. Yet everybody in these places has a mobile phone and they all have access to everything. So there must be a way that information is spread. And information technology is a big thing in the Caribbean. And if you look at the youth anywhere, they're all on it. They've all got their little thing going with their mobile phones, and pay them something with credit and you get this topped up and you do this and you go to, there's always a person on the corner and you just go and top up your phone. So information technology is it's spreading across the Caribbean. Yeah. Greetings, Tina, and greetings. Yeah, oh, sorry, Bianca, you're still there. Greetings, sis. I don't know if you've aware that we are talking about creating financial opportunities through cultural tourism. And yeah, we're having a chat about that. So we'd love to hear from you if you want to chip in, if you have any feedback, any opinions, anything.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything right now.
Mm.
Okay. Sorry, I've just come in from the road. It's been a slightly busy day.
I hate this. I hate.
But as soon as I do think of something, I will drop it. I'll drop.
Yeah, well, we're
I think
talking, and
I'll-
anytime you feel like you want to just jump in, that's the whole point. I really don't
Okay,
want
yeah.
this to be a lecture, just me just talking. But obviously, if it has to be, and I have to talk, then I'm gonna have to talk on it because that's what my role is. So I haven't got much choice.
I can't think of anything right now.
Okay. One of the things that was mentioned, Sister Bianca, she's dealing with something, but she mentioned health, like effective health infrastructures within the Caribbean, and how that could be a possible, it's almost like a bit of a turn-off to going back to the Caribbean, like relocating permanently. And it's, you know, it's an issue across what we call the global South, that they don't have the kind of healthcare generally in the same way that, you know, you see in England and America and France and Germany and all these sorts of Western European dominated places. So I was looking at some information about health and thinking maybe one of the things we can also throw into the mix is that how can we transform health services, the provision of health services in the Caribbean, to align with a more holistic in kind of natural health approach, using natural health remedies, indigenous healing, all that sort of thing. So maybe one of the things we ought to think about is that some, in terms of when we relocate, we rematriate to the Caribbean, or if it's West Africa, because many of us came from there and then went to the Caribbean before we effectively ended up here. So if we are rematriating, what things can we take, or when we go back and benefit from, that are actually present in those countries already, that's indigenous to those countries, that exist, traditional ways of healing. So one of the things that we're talking about is integrating healing and traditional practices into mainstream healthcare, because we have to remember that across the Caribbean, across Africa, you know, and indeed most places, there are herbs for everything. There are herbs that grow that can heal, or at least minimize or treat many different ailments. And the more you know about what exists indigenously in these places, the more you are able to address health concerns. So I would also throw that on the table. And I think, I don't know if I mentioned it in any of these Diamond Round Tables, but there's a brother in Senegal that has been healing HIV/AIDS for a good couple of decades. He's in a kind of remote part, and he uses a combination of different herbs, and categorically there's evidence that he's been doing that. I think Dr. Sebi as well spoke about that before many people will say they killed him, which it seems pretty likely. So yeah, when we come back to healthcare, we can also think about thinking outside the box. Are there things we can do that we already possess, or rather things that we can use that we already possess across the Caribbean? So I'll throw that in. Welcome to Cuthbert, and welcome to Lydia. I don't know if anyone has, if I repeat, we are talking about building, we're talking about creating financial opportunities through cultural tourism in the Caribbean. We'd love to hear your ideas, your views, some of the opportunities that might exist. Please Don't allow me just to be the only person speaking. Please feel free, don't feel shy. Take off your microphone and speak freely. Otherwise, I'm going to keep speaking. It's becoming the ISIS lecture. Atiba, my brother, perhaps you want to chip in something, because like I say, I want to avoid the ISIS lecture.
No, so nah, you're doing beautifully anyway, but just so that everybody sort of gets a synopsis of what's been happening today and what we've been talking about is we've been talking about how can we build financial capabilities, but overall build wealth, resources within the Caribbean that enable us to not have to just leave the Caribbean, where we was in positions or a lot of people in the Caribbean have the thought process that they have to live in the UK or they have to go to England to get some form of wealth. Why are we not able to be in that mindset of staying back in the Caribbean? What is holding us back mentally and even beyond the Caribbean and at that as well? And yeah, just how can I think last year or 2021 or something like that, Barbados, they did a program where you could live in Barbados for about a year and you could work remotely. So we're talking about doing those type of sort of programs. So as opposed to just doing cultural trips, we can actually sort of put things in place where people could actually live in the Caribbean and stuff.
It's kind of like a taster class almost, because you know many of us are I'm a Trini true and true, but many of us might be like my daughters are half Trini and half Dominican, and one day they might decide that they wish to relocate to or repatriate to the Caribbean, and the question might be, you know, where do I go? Do I go to Dominica? Do I go to Trinidad? I've got heritage, I've got roots in both places, so perhaps I want to spend 6 months living in Dominica and seeing what it's like, you know, getting to know my culture, my heritage, you know, maybe some of my legacy, you know, what opportunities are there, because you could be working online, but you could also be building a business. You could also be building something that could benefit our people back home, you know, in relation to what's going on over here. So you might want to live in, you know, they might want to live there for 6 months and then try Trinidad and see what, you know, there's far more, what do I say, in terms of economic infrastructure, there's far more there, very different kind of island, different vibe, different things to offer. So how, you know, are people interested? I don't know, we have a number of you on the call, you know, would you, or have you ever considered a trial run almost, living in the Caribbean for an extended period of time in order to decide whether it's the sort of right place for you to return to or repatriate to or move to, migrate to? Anyone want to give any feedback? Anyone want to take their mic off and chip in? Okay.
We have
So for
Lydia,
example,
we have Cuthbert Jack, and then we have Tina. We haven't heard from today, which would be
okay, I'm
great
going to
and
put you on the
beautiful.
spot, Atiba, my brother. So you come within the category of one of these people who share
First
heritage.
of all, you saw me trying to put them on the spot, and then you come to put me on the spot.
I'm putting you on the spot now.
Okay. Go ahead.
My brother, do unto others.
Yeah, boy, go ahead.
So
The only thing that comes to mind is construction.
oh yes, go on, my sister. Yes, let's hear your beautiful voice.
The only thing that comes to mind in order to help people back home to, like, you know, like it's the trade skills, because you can go anywhere in the world. Do you understand? Like, you make decent money anywhere in the world if you learn trade skills. So I guess that's the only thing I really have to say in terms of like being back home and trying to build yourself without having to spend. I mean, when you think about it, the bag of money that they spend trying to get into our country anyway, if it was put productively, they could give themselves a very good foundation back home.
You're absolutely right, my sister. And what sort of, I mean, if, for example, if you were in that situation, it was you and you had the opportunity to take on a trade skill to use to help you relocate back home, what sort of thing would you be interested in?
I mean, I'm already learning trade skills now. I would learn
Oh, wow.
everything it takes to build a house. Any one of them, it don't matter. It depends on how much money you want to earn. How how good is your maths? And you know what I mean? Like, because like if you're like academically, sorry, if you're like academically really like how do I explain inclined, then I would say electrician and plumbing. But if you're not, then
Yes.
I'd say bricklaying. So yeah, any of those kind of skills, building skills, go anywhere
I
in the
love
world and
that.
make money back home, make money anywhere, everywhere.
You're absolutely correct. I watched this beautiful video of a sister in Trinidad back home who'd, I think she'd had children young and she didn't have a career. And she went exactly as you said, sis, into doing sort of, functional, literally like bricklaying and all of these things. And she was talking about the wonderful life she created for her and her children out of
I'm
doing
currently training to be a carpenter right now. So I'm
Wow.
living what I'm saying, if you understand what I mean.
that. I hear you. And also as women, actually, aside from what you just said, I mean, I also have to throw this in as a woman, actually, it's really important that we're able to do that because all too often we don't have these skills. I mean, we're not able to do the things that, that are required, like the basic things to run a house in terms of like.
My biggest argument on that is we fought for equality, right? Well, let's start doing the hard jobs because you'll find that they're not. You see, women, they're very creative in it, so you'll find that women will find easier ways to do a man's job than a man would, if you understand what I mean. Like, I work with pure men, so I'm straight up an improver.
And also we're better at multitasking. We multitask
just going
really
over
well.
there working, like kind of just like neating it up and thing, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I hear you, sis. Yes, definitely.
Finding your niche, innit? It depends on like what are you good at? What do you like? Because if you do something that you like, then it doesn't feel like you're working.
Precisely.
If you understand what I mean.
Precisely, yes.
Even when I'm not at work, I'm working. People are butt me up and be like, oh, so this is what you're doing now. I need this, and this done.
Well, now you can do it. I mean, that is a major step towards the idea the realization of locating back home to the Caribbean.
Yeah. We need to go back to them old school guild skills, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker.
Yes. And all too often we've heard how we've lost those skills. And it's ironic because it's another story for another time, but the whole Brexit thing, when all these Eastern Europeans left and then suddenly they had no bricklayers and they had no plumbers and there's a shortage of electricians.
There's a big shortage of plumbers. Over 4,000 plumbers, 40,000 plumbers are needed.
Well, there you go.
And imagine being a woman in the field.
Well done. That's absolutely
heating,
wonderful.
Water and gas. Cover all my bases. Then smart meters.
Definitely.
You need to catch up and follow the money. That's my advice. Follow the money. Find your niche and follow the money.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Sister Lydia Johnson, you've got your hand up. You want to speak, sis?
Yes, please. I was just thinking, over here, there's ways that you can find how to do a trade, like in education and so forth. When you go abroad, I think it's important to research where you can learn such if you're going to relocate and find your niche. It's important to know your skill set and where you can actually, learn, otherwise, if you don't have a trade here, like the sister was just saying, then you're kind of working on air. So if there's any information on, specific countries of, people's interest in the group and where you can find where to learn in colleges or apprenticeships or roles, I think that would be useful. That's a starting mark.
Well, what sort of things are you thinking of in terms of you mentioned apprenticeships and roles? Do you think there are particular skills that might be pertinent to the Caribbean, to relocating?
it just depends on your talent and your
Mm.
interest and what's needed. You have to go there with what's required. It's like the sister was saying, building and infrastructure and stuff. That's definitely needed. It's always going to be a requirement. So you're never out of money. There's always going to be supply and work. So finding things around that nature and things that people need, whether it's, people eat every day. So
That's what I was about to say. For all you women out there that want to relocate and you can cook, you're supposed to be going abroad and learning the freshest ingredients. And we ain't got no excuse because everybody has skills. Even if we don't see them as skills because we do them day to day, it's normal life for us. Everyone has skills.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think it's just finding what you're interested in and even if you don't have any knowledge, finding out where you can learn those things. That's my
Thank you, sis. That's a really great contribution. And we have my brother Cuthbert. Your hands up.
Yeah, hi, how are you going?
Greetings, brother.
Good. One of the things that when I came on, I heard you guys talking about people migrating to England or America, wherever they go. Anyway, one of the things why people leave the Caribbean initially is one of the things that is, anyways, for health reasons, medical reasons, and but what I'm actually thinking about is the fact that these days the alternative medicine medication and is from the different herbs that is found in the Caribbean is so immense. So basically, I'm thinking if I was to ever return to the Caribbean, I definitely would try to start some sort of a business transaction in relation to some of the usage of things that when we were growing up we never actually thought of. Like I'm hearing about the importance of things like soursop leaf, and
I knew you was gonna say that. Soursop is so important, not just the leaf, the fruit. We're supposed to eat it every day. It's how many times more powerful than chemotherapy as a spirulina, like even the avocado, we dash with the seed, I boil it and drink. Things like that. Food is our medicine. Sorry to interrupt you. But yes, definitely on your page on that.
That's hold 1 second for me, please. I want to just plug my phone in. It's losing its battery.
Yes, of course. I was actually talking with somebody, I think it was yesterday, about soursop leaf. The fact that we have abundant.
It's not only soursop leaf. I was actually speaking to one of my sons recently, and I actually said to him, and I mean this, name a fruit. And even right now online, I can challenge any of you to name a fruit, and we had it on our lands. My father had these things that we cultivated. So that's one of the areas that...
name a fruit.
Name a fruit, and we had it on our lands back home.
Oh, you mean you had every single fruit? So you had
we had everything.
You had pomsite.
Sorry?
You had pomsite.
Come on, that's common. That's a plum rose. We call them plum rose anyway.
Okay. And you had sugar cane.
We had loads. What are you talking about? St. Vincent had the best sugar cane at one time.
You had avocado. Your zabaca. Your zabaca is as good as ours in Trinidad.
Please, Isis. No. I'm not. Oh, sorry. I'm not Trinidadian, and I'm actually from St. Vincent. That's
what I said. Is your zabaca in St. Vincent? That's what I'm saying. As good as ours in Trinidad. I'm throwing that gauntlet down to you, my brother.
No. Listen, and there's something I want to actually. I must, before I come off the line, take up something with what's her name? I can't remember. Not the lady who spoke just now, but the one who spoke before when she talked about man and woman jab. Women can do everything, but we get to that. What I'm saying is that the fruits we had when I came to England, it took me a long time to buy things like coconut water.
Oh my God, tell me about it.
Because
we wouldn't buy them at all. My grandmother couldn't when she saw oh my God, my brother, I remember, I totally resonate with that. We couldn't believe it when we got here.
We had mangoes that you could have just reached up and picked they're
Thank
called
you. I used to climb
they're,
the tree and just pick them when I
they're
was a
called
kid back
they're
home.
called
Yeah.
they're called sea island grafted. They were big
I,
like your head, honestly. We had everything. But what I wanted to say though is this is an area that people could go back and get involved in. Like Atiba do CMOS and them kind of stuff. Those are things we had, at our leisure. Well, we didn't have CMOS on our land, but CMOS was there just because we were living next to the sea, right? So what I'm saying is that we can actually do these kind of things. The other thing that I want to mention, the young lady who mentioned the fact that she's now a carpenter, that's really good. The point is that because right now in the Caribbean and St. Vincent, for instance, I've seen it on pictures, but I haven't seen them physically, but I'm hearing that some of the houses in St. Vincent now is even bigger than houses in England. The kind of a fashionable houses they're building now in the Caribbean.
but we've
Right.
always had more beautiful houses back home than we have here. I mean, of course, we have property, but when you
because
think about it,
because
you know,
people are now moving back from
mm,
people are moving back from England and the US to build houses back in the Caribbean. But I think one of the reasons why, because for instance, all that niceties I can actually talk about St. Vincent. One of the failures of St. Vincent is its medical, the medical issues, right? The hospitals are rubbish. The whole medical situation is really terrible.
so my brother, can I just stop you there? One of the things that we mentioned this whole issue. That was one of the, we call it a barrier, should we say, to returning to repatriation. But I mentioned that what about exploring sort of holistic health, traditional healing, how you can implement traditional healing practices, both in terms of treatment and prevention, because like you said, it's come to light there. I mean, for me, for example, when I was a child back home in Trinidad, we call papaya pawpaw. So, I would just throw away the seeds. And then I discovered, I was living back home in 2016, I was back home for the year there, that these seeds were really good for you. So then I would scoop out the seeds and save them, and then I'd eat them. But again, that's another form of medicine. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that we have that this is literally medicine in the plants that we have. So could we not implement that?
Yeah, what I was saying, Isis, I agree with your thing. I'm only saying initially that's why some people would have left and don't want to go back because of but since the discovery, since I started to be exposed, for instance, to the alternative medicine using the different herbs and so forth, it actually makes it a bit more, you think about it more in terms of whether or not you actually go back, because you have everything. Every time I hear people talk, for instance, every time I hear people talk about soursop bush, I'm thinking, Jesus, we had a massive tree right next to the house. Actually, you could reach out the window and pick some leaf. Right? That's how close it was to the house. And so all these are ideas. Anyway, the other thing I want to actually mention is that the young lady I can't remember her name actually, who mentioned about the I'm looking, I think Tina.
I mentioned,
yeah, Tina mentioned, I think it's Tina or something like that. And you mentioned the fact that I think
Spirulina.
I think she's the one who says she's now doing carpentry and all everything.
I am, I'm training to be a plumber as well.
Yeah, excellent. But what I'm saying is that these days you really cannot identify. You're talking about man and woman's job. You can't really identify what's a man's job from a woman's job, because men can do anything and women can do anything. It's like, for instance, just now when Isis actually mentioned the fact that the women could cook. There are men who are better. Well, there's some men who are better cook than women. All right. So there's an opportunity for everyone to actually.
I agree with you.
Go back and do these things actually, but I don't want to. Sorry?
I said wholeheartedly fact. If you give my dad a piece of fish, he'll rock your world.
My ex-husband is a way better cook than me. My daughter always says, Daddy's cooking is much better than yours, Mummy.
Well, at least I'm not bad anyway at that anyway. Because my whole family, we all learned to cook. We never had in our house when we were growing up as young boys. There wasn't a girl's job. The only thing that the girls used to do and we wasn't doing is wash their underclothes. We used to just go wash clothes just the same. Anybody go down and wash their own clothes. We didn't have when I was growing up earlier, we didn't have the facilities of like washing machine and those kind of thing. You had to wash at the tub. I don't know if you know about that anyway.
I don't know about that, but in Jamaica we have the washboard that has like the like glass ridges on it, and
we have that
and it
back
has a little bit at the top of the cupboard. And it has a little bit at the top that you hold the bar of soap.
Yeah.
Cushy, and you rub the soap over the ridges, and then you rub the clothes over the.
we call that a juking board in Trinidad. Yeah, we used to have the juking board as well. Yeah.
What do you mean? When you wash clothes like that, better than washing machine, believe.
Oh God, oh my God, the clothes are so clean.
And we
become white again.
Literally, and they smell so fresh.
Naturally. But yeah, there's a lot of opportunities. But I think what happened is that coming abroad, people actually get sort of caught up with the convenience, of having things right in the house. You have all these kind of things. But I think the development back home has actually reached the point, because when I go back home, people don't use them kind of a juk. I think it's juking board they call them. I think.
Yeah, juking board. Yeah.
And we started to go for water. Oh God, we started to go for water every morning before we go to school. We started to fill up the tank. During the dry season, we fill up the tank with water, from the standpipe. But those things are now actually so. The islands are prepared for a return for people like yourselves online. It's actually prepared. It's actually would give you the same sort of convenience that you are now enjoying in England. So there isn't anything that England offers that the Caribbean cannot offer. So in terms of the topic, I think the topic is actually cultural. What's the topic again?
Creating financial opportunities through culture.
Financial opportunities through tourism. The thing is that returning, there's so much things we can do. So much things you can do. Because one of the things we are, Black people are anyway, are very creative.
Yes.
But sometimes we are creative, but we don't really realize it. Right.
Well, there's an intrinsic nature to that creativity.
Naturally.
Well.
You just reminded me, Jamaicans have a tendency to kind of build their own cars out of all sorts of things.
we used to make the cart, you drive. The cart, the go-kart,
we're bad in the Caribbean. We're bad pun that still. That would be a good way to come into cultural tourism for those who like cars. Yeah.
Naturally. We didn't have the engine, but basically at the end of it, when you're going down a hill, it's okay.
You just have to pull it uphill.
Pull a string underneath and drag it all the way back.
There's so much things you can do, man. So much things you can do.
And I think that's the thing. We were when my brother here, Atiba, and I were talking about the theme for this evening. We were really thinking, that model that Barbados offered, as Atiba said earlier, whereby they were saying, look, come, you can spend a year here, you can work online, everybody's working online, you can live in Barbados, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, come and, the beaches are in close proximity to everything, It was a really good offer, but actually that offer is across the Caribbean. Can we monopolize on that? Can we take advantage of the possibility that we could organize to spend extended periods in various islands and just decide whether it's the place for us? Because like I said at the beginning, one might have a parent from one island or another will be born in one island. I was born in TNT, but at the end of the day, I might decide I want to relocate to a different island eventually. So I think it's important for us to think about checking out opportunities, you know, where can we live, and are there opportunities to literally go back to working online, find an online or virtual, whatever they call it, job, and live in the Caribbean, get paid in
Well,
English
that's
money.
the thing. Like everybody learns different for a start. There's some people that are visual learners. There's some people that are like they book learners. There's some people that are practical learners.
Yes.
So like, ideally, working online for me personally, I'm gonna be honest with you, I would find that kind of boring. Like, I
Alright,
want to
you
do
go.
something that's more with my hands, that's more physical. I want an apprenticeship that, yeah, you know, like where there's parts where we like sit down and we learn through the computer. We do like webinars, but it needs to be practical for me personally, because I will a year of that and I will lose interest quick still.
Well, you see, you have a real advantage. So, for example, I always use this example. The brethren of mine from London, he's here now. Back in when I was back last time I was back home, he introduced me to his brother. One of his brothers is Boba Dread. He lived up in East Port of Spain, and he was basically like, yeah, you know, I want to set up a shop. And I thought to myself, well, that sounds cool. 2 weeks later, like, he rang me, he's like, yeah, I got my shop now. So I went up to see what he'd done, and literally what he did is he got bits of wood and some galvanizing, and he built himself a shop with an area where he could sleep, and he had all this stock in there, and he was selling these little things, and he's making his money. So we have to also remember that, for example, with you, Sister Tina, the fact that you can build houses, there are opportunities for you to do things back home that don't exist here because of all the bureaucracy and the red tape. Because as everybody knows who lives here, you can't do anything without bureaucracy.
While I was talking to a friend, it's funny because I have many a plan to do many a thing, but I guess I have to share this one in order to explain my story. Basically, I want to buy property on auction outside of London. I work my way in. So like, buy it, fix it up. It's pure renting, rent it out until I work my way back into London. But I think it'd be better spent if I buy land abroad and then I go back like from like beginning of September and come back ending of March. So 6 months there, 6 months here ish. And work hard. Do you know what I mean?
But this is exactly what we're talking about.
there.
But maybe one of the things, sis, we could be thinking about is, are there people who are back home in the Caribbean and back here that people can do swaps almost? Because some people might want to spend 6 months here and 6 months there. So, you know, there's lots of possibilities. We need to be thinking about thinking outside the box. What opportunities are there for us to do tourism in a different way that benefits us, so that you are maybe swapping with another sister or brother back in the Caribbean island, so you're both enriching each other, making each other more wealthy, keeping that money circulating that money in our community, so it doesn't circulate.
Admittedly,
3 or
right
4
now
times.
it's more of a team I would need still. There's so much work, it's not even no joke.
But it's all possible, and this is what we need to be thinking about. How can we create these opportunities?
Because I know there's some amazing construction workers in the Caribbean. Because you know, when we do our thing, believe it.
Of course.
Yeah, we're on point.
Yes. So look,
I'll get back to my issue. My issue is that the way that I want to build here, like if I buy a house and all the houses on that road have like a certain type of roof, I have to have that certain type of roof. And
exactly.
Because I'm just like, I go into certain areas and I see all the houses look different, but that's when you're only coming in, like from the motorway, dual carriageway, like. But when you actually come
it just
in,
depends on every area. Yeah, but you don't have those kind of restrictions usually in most parts of the Caribbean. You wouldn't have that.
Or Africa, you build how you want to build. It's yours. But it's not like that over here. I'll admit it's very frustrating. That's why I'm saying I'm feeling like it's better for me to take my money abroad.
And invest abroad and build abroad, yes.
Yeah.
Well, this is why we're doing exactly what we're doing. And you know, I just want to start winding things up, because we're now within an hour of when we started. We started late. So it's wonderful that we've had all of you there. I'm just aware that some of you haven't said anything. And I know we've got Karina, San, Lydia, did you say? I can't remember. No, Lydia, no, I don't think you said anything. So Tina, Bianca and Cuthbert, thank you so much all for for your contributions that have been wonderful. It
You're
would be
welcome. It's
great
always
if
a pleasure.
give thanks, sis. Always a pleasure to hear your voice and your wonderful contributions. Karina, Lydia, and San, if you had any comments you wanted to make very quickly before we end, otherwise I will start to draw this to an end. And again, to remind people that the purpose of doing this is to bring our community together, to look at opportunities and to build a structure, to put something in place so that we can actually offer authentic cultural tourism packages that enrich, people in the Caribbean. If we're enriching people in the Caribbean, we're enriching ourselves, because we're enriching our people, our family. It's building our nation. It's, pan-Caribbeanism, should we call it, similar to Pan-Africanism. So all good. So this, of course, is the brainchild of our brother, Atiba, who has initiated all of this. And so I want to hand over to him to close us out. And I just want to say thank you all for listening to me. And I'm so thankful to all of you who have contributed and shared your wise words. Give thanks.
Yes, one love. Thank you very much, Isis, for this beautiful energy that you've given to us today. Again, obviously, Diamond Roundtable was created from the organization Caribbean Global Destinations, who we're working on behalf of. And yet, it's just beautiful things moving forward, great things. I'm just loving life right now. Yeah, I'm loving this beautiful energy that we're all sort of just coming together on a weekly basis and giving. And it's helping me to build as well on a personal level. So keep striving forward, and yeah, let's keep elevating. One love, and have a great evening.
We're not doing it next week either, are we?
Oh yeah, also as well, just to let you guys know, due to the Grenfell Towers, which is dead to ISIS, where Diamond Roundtable will not be on next week, but we will be back on the week after, basically. So yes, blessings to everyone in the Grenfell Towers, and we move forward with elevated precision, and I will see you all again in 2 weeks' time. One love and peace.
Nice.